muted.
All right, welcome everyone. This is the North Central Climate Science Center monthly check-in, and this is Jill Lackett at the North Central. We have Brian and Beth and Michelle as well. Can you mute, please, if you're not speaking right now?
Please mute your background noise. Please mute your background noise. Thank you.
Okay, great. Jeff Morstead is our speaker today. But before we do that, I'm just going to check real quick. Is JJ Schinker on the line yet? Okay. She might be joining in a little while. She's our new University Consortium member from Wyoming, and I was going to have her introduce herself, but maybe we'll check again after Jeff does his presentation. All right. Jeff, are you ready?
I believe I am. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes. I can do. I'm sorry?
People are chatting that they still can't get into the phone line.
Oh. Seems that, just a minute, Jeff. It seems there's a problem with the, with the phone line. And it should, yeah, the 1099 is correct. Maybe I should type the whole.
So for those of you not able to dial in, I guess
yeah. Okay. I'm going to type the whole phone number and the passcode again.
Lindsay, do you have access to MailChimp?
I can't this morning. I can't log in.
I was going to ask if somebody could resend the initial invite.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, I'm trying to log in right now, weirdly, and it's not letting me log in.
Well, if you're able to get in, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, I will, yeah.
All right, I sent the whole new phone number and, I mean, the everything that should be correct, but I think we better get started. Okay. All right. Today our speaker is Jeff Morstead. I don't think he really needs an introduction to this group, but in case people hadn't heard, he is now the Chief Scientist for the National Invasive Species Council Secretariat. So Jeff, when you're ready, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Jill, and appreciate the invitation from Dennis that you guys aren't like throwing rotten tomatoes at me or anything for bailing on the Climate Science Center. So as Jill said, I did take this opportunity that rose to be the Chief Scientist for the National Invasive Species Council. I'm excited to be doing that. And I have a few slides that I kind of describe how there's a connection, I think, between the climate science that we've been doing and some invasive species work. Kind of excited about this opportunity, but a little bit bittersweet in moving on from the Climate Science Center. We had our 5-year review at the end of January. I think it went very well. I think there's a lot of exciting, impressive work that we kind of had the opportunity to compile to present to that review panel, and I think collectively a lot to be proud of. So an exciting opportunity to move on, but quite an impressive history of and established work that we've done at the Climate Science Center. So appreciate you guys listening and the invitation to kind of describe some lessons learned. I think maybe the first lessons learned is like Macintosh seems to work a lot better than Dell's, as I've dealt with in my new job multiple problems with my new PC, and I'm actually down in Denver right now trying to get it re-imaged and lost the work that I did the first week on the job. So for better or worse, that's been my first week. Anyway, what I was going to talk about today, and probably take a little bit, about a half hour, I'm hoping to wrap up by then, but kind of this transition from climate change to invasive species and that overlap that I'm talking about. And then maybe some lessons learned from the first 5 years, and then just some thoughts on looking forward. So for background for folks, the National Invasive Species Council was established in 1999 under then President Clinton with a presidential order to coordinate across the federal agencies, very high level, kind of trying to have this council comprised of secretary or administrators at the highest level of the government. That tends to get then delegated down to somebody close to the high level, but not the secretary or the administrator, but somebody working across where invasives, what that agency is doing for invasives. Within Department of Interior, Hillary Smith oversees what the Department of Interior is doing and kind of reports and serves on this National Invasive Species Council. And then within that council, there's a secretariat, which is the staff that I'm now a part of, and there's an executive director, Jamie Razor, who kind of tries to organize the work of the council, and then has an external advisory committee. Anyway, focusing on that prevention, eradication, controlling of invasive species, and restoring ecosystems as well. So those are kind of the big 4 things that collectively the NISC, the Secretariat, and then the agencies on the council try to accomplish and coordinate the work among them. Sort of a longer term, kind of like what the LCCs are doing with landscape conservation and kind of climate. The invasives are trying to do, the NISC has been trying to do some coordination across invasives since '99. In addition to kind of like just having this opportunity that came up quickly, but even going back to a talk that Brian Miller and Catherine Jonovich and I prepared for the Ecological Society of America meeting back in August, going back to the scanning, you'll probably see some slides in my talk that you're all familiar with. But on the scanning conservation horizons, and figure 1 that we used in our 5-year plan and have referred to a lot, is that when you assess vulnerability to climate change, you might want to think kind of, of how this framework can maybe be generalized and expand beyond just climate change. And so what we've done is taught this course, through the National Conservation Training Center, and in a lot of cases, I've heard people talk about some other stressors in addition to climate change. And so kind of based on that feedback, there's concerns of forcings of fire and kind of what happens after a fire disturbance. This is invasives. We do hear a lot about invasives from land managers on those climate change vulnerability courses. Insects or infestations thereof, invasive or native insects, but coming in, as we're all aware of, in mountain pine beetle. And then development for population growth or energy extraction being major disturbances. So what we talked about at that ESA meeting, or the presentation, was that you can adopt this framework to think about climate change and other forcings. And I think that's kind of where invasives come in. What I think is interesting is to consider what you gain by considering the multiple forcings and the management options together. I think we can leverage off of the disciplines and learn from what people are doing, similar to the way this this framework from the scanning document was formulated under climate change. It makes a lot of sense for landscape conservation design, and it makes a lot of sense for how invasives or other disturbances fit in. I think there's an interaction. Direct and indirect effects of climate are going to be part of what we consider. I think that the whole framework and looking at multiple forcings has you a little less myopic to think about your particular forcing, whether it be invasives or climate change, and thinking back to the original or the ultimate management objective and resource target. There's also, and this is kind of the last 2 bullets are kind of, the 4th bullet is related to the simulation modeling that was the heart of that ESA talk, but basically kind of looking at the modeling together has to bring in some uncertainty, and then trying to understand that uncertainty is more challenging by looking at multiple forcings, but actually more true to the reality. So we have to really realize that there's some compounding uncertainty with the different components, different forcings, and different management actions. And finally, again, just focusing on the goal, kind of related to that third bullet point, is the management considerations. What is it you're trying to preserve? And so I think that, to me, in a lot of ways, this sort of combination of different forcing factors brings you back to what is the objective of the target that you're managing. Anyway, I can pause there if there's any questions, but then, and before I move on to Climate Science Center lessons learned. I'll just move forward. So these were kind of, with the laptop repair that kind of got in my way yesterday afternoon, put these together. I'd been thinking about them for a while, but finally got them kind of to do this, got them down last night. So it's 5 years of experience, but it's kind of, there's probably other things we could build on these lessons learned. So take it kind of with a possibly iterative list of what we can do. And I thought, we started with, I think, a very solid plan, and I think that's in large part to both Dennis, the work of Jay Hesbeck. We had a good stakeholder advisory committee together. We brought the university folks. We had some USGS people and LCCs being on that stakeholder advisory committee to help formulate this plan. And to me, I think it was strong enough to give us the direction and allow us to keep checking back on that plan as we proceeded forward. So I'm kind of grateful that we took the time to invest in that, and I think it was a solid plan. And maybe going forward, you think about revising that in the next year, and kind of you got that wide enough group of folks, enough brains thinking about it, you can kind of develop something that can be useful as you proceed. And I think part of that plan was the science delivery, kind of through the revamp, but also these foundational science areas. I think they really have stood the test of time, that the climate drivers, how they impact the ecosystems, and then a human dimension. I think that, or the adaptation mitigation component of that, has allowed the North Central, as much as any other CSC, to really think about that interdisciplinary human dimension and requisite social science that goes into that work. And so, the solid plan and the foundational science areas of that plan, I think, have been really useful for the Climate Science Center. I think the idea of this mission of being a two-way street, and we even highlighted the text to show, kind of green is where we're bringing science to land managers, but then the blue arrows coming back out is that we're providing kind of an engaged management community to those researchers. So that foundational science areas and that interaction and between the two, I think, have been really, really useful. I think we've focused on serving as a resource as much as a funding source. This is where I think the balance is the hard part, in that when you do the solicitations and you are a funding source, you really get some the kind of cream rising to the top. I think the work that's been funded through the Climate Science Center has done really impressive and lasting work that will contribute to how climate change can influence how we think about resource management. And credit to those PIs, and it's hard to kind of get that caliber of effort without specific funding for that, and the competitive process helps you get to that. That said, I think there's a lot of utility as well as having this resource that we call it for the vulnerability assessment and adaptation mitigation. And in fact, with our 5-year report, we kind of tallied up the various kind of I would say like non-competitive or the non-solicited projects that that the Climate Science Center has supported. In the 5-year report, you have a description of each category and some examples of these things, but there's 136 kind of and counting activities that the Climate Science Center has supported, and you see there kind of different categories of those: consultation, training, student interactions, and a lot of good feedback from that. so this question, there's this balance, and I think Climate Science Center did a decent job with kind of that balance, and it's going to be tricky moving forward to figure out what that right balance is, but it seems to me both competed dollars and sort of larger scale projects, as well as the staff and capacity that can kind of handle those questions that come to them. I kind of lumped a couple of things together here in understanding how to be a boundary organization. I think that the Climate Science Centers, as well as the RISAs and the Climate Hubs, are boundary organizations. I think that there's, in a lot of ways, a boundary chain where there's more than one group in between, sort of showing maybe a boundary arch with various blocks that come into that. And on one side is kind of the research side. The other is the land management or the practice, the practical side. A lot of words in here, it's maybe probably too much. But taking from the boundary object literature on Cash et al. And others that have written about this, but credible, salient, legitimate science or activities that bridge between that research on one side and then the actions on the other. I think instrumental for what the Climate Science Center has done is using the Resource for Advanced Modeling that providing a physical space people can sit around, as well as computing and tools that take advantage of that computing, software that takes advantage of that computing, and the visualization wall it showed here, and kind of number of sessions that have happened since 2007. There's been quite a bit of use to this, and I think having that physical space has been helpful. We've actually got a publication out in Society of Natural Resources that's going to talk about kind of the mechanisms of co-production of knowledge, or this kind of, I think, serving as a boundary organization. And we use the example of the climate considerations for Colorado State Wildlife Action Plan, and where in a two-day session at the RAM brought in the management experience and managers, and then multiple scientific disciplines from climate, ecology, and statistics, and that we had kind of these mechanisms, and the article describes these in more detail, and I imagine once it's published, it'll be maybe a news item on the Climate Science Center page, and you'll get access to that. But what we kind of then looked at two major results as kind of a spiraling in to refine the objectives of that analysis, and as well as spiraling out where we all kind of learned from each other. So this is a figure from that paper, and kind of based on kind of a little bit of, I'm not sure how clear that comes across, but what happened, and Amanda Cravens had coded the discussion that occurred during this two-day meeting. Brian Miller had arranged to record it, and Amanda took the arduous task of coding all that up into the various topics that were being discussed during those 2 days. And what we sort of found was interesting was kind of the manager's needs, the climate modeling, and ecology seem to kind of follow this back and forth quite a bit, where we're kind of looking at the need, the climate, and the ecology, the need, the climate, and the ecology. And then, so that was kind of an interesting thing to see, is that kind of backing around from those three, but also defining objectives is not just at the beginning of the meeting, but rather revisited throughout, and then kind of concluding with kind of refining that based on the conversation that happened through there. So I think this paper shows the kind of some practical mechanisms to get at boundary work I'm bringing two together. So I think that that's kind of something we've contributed, or we have as some information or insights that's come from the Climate Science Center. Also, as a boundary organization, I think we've shown that the collaboration with the hubs and the RISAs, where we each kind of have our own constituent group, and try to capitalize on each other's skills and tools that we have, and not reinvent the wheel, but yet serve our individual constituents. And so I think that that's been positive as a way to collectively work as, as fellow boundary objects and boundary organizations to do that work. Finally, I think we can be proud, or the Climate Science Center can be proud and kind of really look to these LCC liaisons that have been set up. I think that they formalize a bit of that boundary crossing where the Climate Science Center can bring science, USGS can bring science and resources to the needs that are being expressed through the LCC working groups or convening. And so I think that I'm hopeful that these are going to help continue that kind of boundary crossing and bringing the capacity of the Climate Science Center to the management needs. Finally, I think we saw some positive results of building on existing programs and seeking that leverage. In our training capacity, or our training activities, we've taken advantage of the National Conservation Training Center. I think that has been effective for the training that the Climate Science Center has done. There's also been training at the more traditional level of universities, and that is leveraged as well, and the conferences and training that we've done internal. But in a lot of ways, all of those have done some degree of leveraging. We've thought about climate and its connection to the living systems through phenology, and this has been a bit of a fun science exploration for me personally and some others at the center, Geneva and Brian, and we've interacted with, and this is where the leverage comes in, the USA National Phenology Network. There's a Committee on Earth Observing Satellites. We've worked with them, and to kind of do, and the PhenoCam network that Andrew Richardson leads out of Harvard, has tied into those various efforts to set up some phenocameras and doing some research related to that. We've also worked with the indigenous community, and Brian, hats off to him for really kind of the tenacity in keeping up with that, because I think now there is some strong leverage with that indigenous phenology network and community, and Brian can give people more information on it, but there's standing monthly calls the first Tuesday of the month, and there's really some exciting kind of, I think, and growing interest and momentum behind that. But that was taking advantage of the Rising Voices workshop, some of the work that Dan Wildcat has done with the Indigenous Peoples Climate Change Working Group. So kind of across the board on the phenology, I think we've done some leveraging with the existing programs. Finally, looking forward, and what I put here in parentheses is use the slide that we showed at the 5-year review, and then I've added in the parentheses kind of like what kind of still needs to happen, I think, for that particular topic. So the Paleo Environmental Database that Kathleen Irvine had set up at Montana State University is there's some interest in other CSCs that, and in particular Steve Gray, because of his paleo climate background, is interested in setting up, and there's an ability to maybe tie this into management decisions or actions. And so there's still talk across the CSC, the Southwest, and Alaska, and maybe the work that's been done with paleo databases in the North Central could contribute to that. I think with Gabriel Sine sitting at the North Central Climate Science Center, as well as the work that NOAA and CU Boulder have done, Mike Hobbins in particular, on evapotranspiration, whether it be potential or actual, kind of looking at those differences and sort of the analysis of kind of how that can indicate, can provide better indicators of drought is exciting work that could be built on. I think the climate primers, kind of climate primers 2.0, and integrating into VizTrails or integrating in any other way with the ecological modeling is an exciting and very strong potential activity, so that when you do that, those graphical summaries or I guess it's not manipulating is not the right word. We don't like to manipulate climate data, but you extract summaries from climate data. A lot of times those summaries are what's most meaningful for an ecological response model. And so integrating the graphics and understanding what's happening and summarizing climate data across scenarios in a way that could automate feeding that into the habitat modeling, I think is exciting. Key regionally focused publications, I think the National Climate Assessment is a big part of what, is kind of looking closest on the horizon here of what's going to be going on. And it's good to have the Climate Science Center input on that across the network, not just North Central. Topo weather, I think that's been a well-used and an informative temperature data set, but going on to precip and ET is going to be help the use of that data, and then if and when we get precip and ET as part of kind of topo weather packaged with it, to explore bias correcting to that topo weather data set is something that could yet be done. And then handing off this phenology, land surface phenology and phenocams, possibly in an operational sense to maybe the next generation of AmericaView or other USGS programs, is something that I think you could take advantage of what's been done with the North Central as well as other phenocams, but then make those kind of more operational, transition to an operational home. In our capacity, I think, or in the North Central's capacity, we listed this in a 5-year kind of review, and I think it's a strong list of tools and information and collaborative opportunities that the North Central has established, and sets good groundwork for moving forward. And maybe in the next 5-year plan, this could be kind of considered as a foundation for that next round. And finally, let me just say a sincere thanks. I think between the staff that's there at the Climate Science Center, the academic community, for the University Consortium, expanded list of colleagues at USGS that I hadn't known prior to taking this job, a lot of people across Interior that I think have been brought to the Climate Center, through the landscape conservation properties. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You just came back for a moment there. Your audio was cutting out, but it sounds like.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. I don't know what. Anyway, the joys of joining with the cell phone, but just I wanted to say thanks to the staff, the academic through the University Consortium, and an expanded kind of list of USGS collaborators through more than I knew before taking this job. And then a lot of land management folks, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the different Fish and Wildlife Service folks through the LCCs and the Stakeholder Committee, a lot of new friends and colleagues at NOAA through Doug Cluck and all of his coordination, and then the tribes, which have been an exciting kind of group that I hadn't worked with prior to this. It's been very rewarding to learn from them and to work with them. So and I just wanted to close with that appreciation for a really quite incredible 5 years of getting to know a lot of people that I didn't know prior to this, and hopefully with respect to those general forcings and all focusing on how resource targets of concern kind of need to be aware of both climate change and invasives. I'm hoping that, as I've written in a lot of email to people, that our paths won't wander so far that we won't stay in touch or see each other in new ways over the next couple of years and moving forward. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions.
Jeff, thanks a lot. This is very helpful, and thanks for your leadership over the last 5 years. You're going to be sorely missed. I guess just a reminder to a lot of folks, Robin O'Malley is stepped forward from headquarters to serve as acting director in this transition. So he'll be with us for the next probably 3 months or so. So now, yeah, any questions for Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, this is Trevor. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question, now that you've maybe got a chance to look back on everything, what have been the most difficult barriers you've had to deal with in trying to operate as a boundary organization across all these different agencies?
Okay. Let me. You know, I think one of the things that the review panel pointed out to us is quantifying in some way, or at least documenting in some way, the value that we brought to the table or to these management decisions. And I think one of the things that we could be proud of collectively is that that review panel suggested that we should consider it, because we have made such good progress in this regard, that we have, maybe more so than a lot of folks or activities, the opportunity to have benefit, but that there has been benefits from what we've done. So how do we somehow document that or quantify it? And that is, I think, a challenge. We did think that maybe a summary of what the users brought to that 5-year review panel it might provide some narrative, maybe not quantitative, but some qualitative review of how we've contributed to the decision process and made them and helped inform that. But I still think it's a tough challenge to quantify that. And I think moving forward, it's an important consideration with respect to justifying programs and or hopefully increased budgets, at least flatline budgets, to keep programs like the Climate Science Center Network moving forward, is to quantify the benefit to the resource management community.
Sounds like an evaluation program proposal.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, Dennis, had the insight in our work with Beth McKnight from that collaboration with the RISA is, in her survey and her expertise, as well as Shannon's and yours, or Trevor, and the human dimensions component to that. Because I think it's not something that we're going to be able to say we scored 7 out of 10 or an 88%, or we increased information by it's not easy to pin down with a metric. So therefore you got to get into kind of that the hard science or the soft science that's hard to do.
Mhm. Thanks.
So maybe a follow-up to that is some insights on some of the anticipated 2017 activities that we're putting into place. One thing that Jeff asked us to do starting last September, October, was to start thinking about activities that might be moving forward if there was 2017 fiscal year funds available, and we're still waiting to find out whether that will be true or not. But one of the things in our discussions post-site review has been sort of two streams of thought of activities. One is to look at activities that would promote the process of engagement between the management or practitioner community and the research community. We find that that this type of interaction is really a process of which knowledge sharing is really fostered, that this leads toward more usable science or actionable science emerging from that type of joint dialogue. And so with the existing projects that we have, trying to figure out a way of enhancing that sort of engagement process. And then related to that, the second sort of stream of thought related to future activities with the 17 funds would be actually coming up with a evaluation assessment tool, a survey tool that can help identify those type of metrics or indicators of successful engagement, help guide this type of process into the future. So that's the current discussion right now among a small group involved with developing plans for, sort of a small and maybe shrinking set of funds coming out of the 17 fiscal year. So we'll be talking more about this over the next few weeks to a couple of months, because we're going to try to actually submit a proposal, a work plan along these lines probably by mid-April, and see, and it'll be somewhat open-ended and fuzzy because we have no budget to actually target, so it'll be somewhat modular in a sense of scoping it out or in, depending upon what comes through with fiscal year 17 funds. Another note on administration and budgeting. The recent word on fiscal year 17 budgets is that Congress will not probably have better insights on what their budget levels will be April 28th, so that we anticipate another CR into June. That kind of puts the kibosh on sort of planning. It's really difficult to plan without a budget. And so we're sort of working in that sort of environment. What we've been told by headquarters is that, at least for the host institution, and I think with the USGS funding, that there'll be incremental funds given to the host institutions to help bridge between, sort of our end of budget year, which is our budget expenses end November 17. They anticipate having some bridge fundings between November and April, so that we can stay operational until the issues of resolving what happens with recompete in fiscal year 17, but 18 budgets get resolved. So they've been looking out for the institutions, and basically the word that we get of support is that no harm will be done to sort of the critical staff that we have. And so we'll be talking with you all about what that means and how to build that into our budget process as we move into this sort of limbo period between now and whenever they pass the budget.
We can go to FSA updates.
Let me just add, this is Jeff. I think I misspoke. I said Kathy Irvine because we were working for Kathy Whitlock did the paleo data work, so apologize to either or both. But a little correction that was niggling in the back of my mind. I was like, wait, what did I say? So sorry about that. But Whitlock has done, of course, the paleo work for the Climate Science Center.
Yep. All right, thanks, Jeff. I think, see, MTIs, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone. And Jeff, good to hear from you. We'll greatly miss you. But thanks for all your support and insights. So we have a few things that we put on the spreadsheet, and I and Candida will just go through some of that. Candida, you want to talk about the paper that you submitted?
Hi, this is Candida. So you probably already heard about the research paper we had going on impacts of PET methods on future drought risk assessments. We had submitted the manuscript last September to PLOS1. It went through 2 rounds of revision, the last which I submitted yesterday, and hopefully that's the final. So, but you never know, so we'll wait to see on that.
Yeah, we had very minor reviews, so hopefully. And so one of the issues that came out of the ET work we've been doing, our PET work, so calling it the evapodemand component term. And so last year, 2 papers came out, kind of seminal work, that kind of pointed to the issue of the way we've been using even the Penman-Monteith-based method to estimate PET is for future projections purposes we'll be overestimating the PET term and therefore overestimating the drying risk because it does not necessarily account for the effect of increased water use efficiency from elevated CO2 level in the atmosphere where the plants become more efficient at transpiration. It's a complicated issue, I think, going forward. It's not simple to address that. We address that point in the paper, but I think for our future research analysis that we do with PET, we'll try to integrate that theme in some intelligent way. It's not very easy to quantify. The other thing we have been working on, and Candida is doing a bulk of the analysis, is kind of the research we're doing on snow. And I think we are one of the things we are really kind of getting into is how is the snow versus rain, the phase of precipitation change is trending in our region. And one of our focus study region has been Wind River region. So looking at the Wind River mountain range and the reservation area that we've been involved with through Shannon and others. Shannon is working on a specific paper, but Candida and I are working on a physical climate paper that's specifically looking at the snow question. And you look at station data, gridded products, and Candida is now looking, the last phase of that is looking at the modest snow cover data. So we hope to have a manuscript ready on that by end of this month. But you want to say anything?
Well, we're presenting that results of this research at the CPAWS meeting in Anchorage, Alaska in May. So I'm thinking like a full manuscript is probably more realistic before that, around then.
And so in that vein, we also were looking at, we don't have snow and rain information, snowfall and rainfall information directly available from different data sets that are out there, including the station data set. And so we've been kind of also testing the sensitivity of these different temperature-based methods to kind of predict the rain versus snow data. So we're also kind of developing the mock data set at 800 meters for different models and continue to add to that data set. And right now providing to the Impacts FSA for their work, but it's available if others are interested in. And folks who connect with us, we do mention about this data set and provide the link to them. I've also given that link to Valerie's team, among others. And lastly, Jeff mentioned about the ET-PET work that we've been involved in, and one of the things we've been doing is outreaching with some of these products that we're also trying to web host at our NOAA division. And in that, we have the real-time maps. And now we just, it's just taking a little longer to get the historical data set to come out there because ecologists have been asking me for that data set, and I've been providing them on one-to-one basis, but it'll be good to have that website up and running, and so anytime now. So with that, that's pretty much it from our side.
Okay, thanks, Imtiaz and Candida. I think Andy was one of the casualties of the phone line, but maybe Arjun looks like he's on, might be able to give an update on the impact group.
Yes, Arjun is here. First, I would like to thank Jeff for his continuous support and very clear insight for NCCSC things. Definitely we'll miss him, but hopefully we'll continue to collaborate with his new organization. Here for the update of the impact team is we are currently working on 2 manuscripts. The methodological effects of water balance estimation on vegetation across the domain and how it, that is the first one, and the second one is how the methodological difference in water balance affects the species distribution in the future in different climate zones of our domain. So it is nearly the draft as almost done, and we are reviewing it. And thanks a lot Imtiaz and Candida for their hard work to get those metadata in 800 kilometer. And very soon I'll send Imtiaz and Candida the draft when it is ready. And other things, as usual, hopefully the manuscript will be, 2 manuscripts will be ready by the end of March on this PET analysis and its potential impacts on vegetation. Okay, that's all from impact.
Okay, thanks, Arjun. I saw that Shannon just had to jump off, but Dennis, anything for the adaptation team?
As you know, the National Adaptation Forum is moving forward, and I believe this, like tomorrow, is the last day of paper submissions or something? Posters. And then last week we just had the National Climate Assessment, Northern Great Plains, satellite meetings and authors meetings last week, and so that was useful to get input into that. The North Central Climate Science Center hosted one of the satellites and actually hosted part of the authors meeting here in Fort Collins, so played an important role in getting that kicked off and getting support into the writing team, both intellectually and financially, and getting that set up and moving forward. So that continues to be an important set of communications and inputs into national efforts.
Okay. All right. We still have a few minutes. Any updates from anyone who's on the call that they want to share with the group? Okay. Well,
Jill, this is Imtiaz. I just want to add that there's a cross-CSC physical climate team's effort to kind of, at the National Adaptation Forum in May, to have this training, 2-hour training session on how to incorporate climate projections into your planning and management plannings. And we are, Candida and I are helping with the development of that training module. And so if you're being part of that, if you're visiting, if you're going to NAF, it might, something for you to kind of, or others to, we might send some information about it so folks know about this training and may be interested in just being part of that discussion.
Yeah, great, thank you. I'll, maybe when you have more information about that, I can send it around to everybody.
You might think about having material available at the booth at NAF.
Yeah.
So, just a little flyer related to that training would be useful, I think, for the other groups as well. So that's really great that you're pulling that together.
Yeah, our Climate Science Center will have a booth at the NAF, so.
Great.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks to everyone for participating. Sorry for the snafu on the phone line, but I'll send around the recording so people who missed it can check it out.
All right.
Bye.
I'm sure our paths will cross before too long. So great talking to everybody, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sounds
Thanks.
good. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.